Welcome everybody to a very special episode of the Monday Show. I am your host, Troy Everloxton, and with me, as always, is Raul Rodriguez. But ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome a dude that not only kills it during the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, he's performed stand-ups all around Chicago. You've seen him on Screen Junkies, Nerdist, Hyper RPG. He's the former host of the Educated Insanity podcast and the current co-host of the Trusty Sidekick Podcast, which you guys can catch the latest episode by clicking the link in the description. But without further ado, the urban gladiator trauma, Jay Washington. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. It's a Sunday afternoon. Well, it'll be Monday when they hear this, but I'm just getting out of the gym. So I'm here with you guys.
Oh, no, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Not a problem. Man, not a problem.
But yeah, before we get grooving in with the whole Schmoedown and we'll geek out, I wanted to ask if you could kind of recall the story of how you got into wrestling. Kind of for what I remember, it had something to do with like a friend back home in Chicago.
Yeah, I was always a wrestling fan as a kid, so that was a given, and we used to always just wrestle and make up the matches in my grandmother's front yard. And so we would do that so many times, and my grandmother would get pissed. And she would be like, yo, there's other people's lawns you all can use, so everybody would do it. And so one of my buddies was like one of my best friends for 30-plus years. He had joined this company, Windy City Pro Wrestling. And he was like, yo, you want to come join? I was like, yeah, let me do this so we can get the wrestling thing going on. And so I go down there, and they're $2,500 a check, and I was like, I'm only not going to be doing this. And so I left. A couple months later, he joined another company, and it was opening, and then I got a chance to work with some travel all over the country doing it. So something I love for it. So yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. So like, what were some of your favorite wrestlers then when you were growing up? Because like for me, I grew up with wrestling and WWE and WCW. But yeah, what were some of your favorites?
Mm-hmm. So I love the Von Erichs. I was a big fan of them. I was a fan of all of the AWA guys, definitely back in the day. NWA guys. Flair was one of them. You know, the Horsemen, all those guys, the world-class championship wrestling guys. But when I got into wrestling and I directly got involved, my biggest influence was Rhino. Because that's who I pretty much saw myself being, a monster or a man-beast in the ring. Mm-hmm. And so Rhino was who I kind of molded my whole image after for a while.
That's so cool. Now, what was one of your favorite moments, I suppose, during while you were wrestling, and maybe was there a specific match that calls out that you were involved in that you'll remember kind of?
There's a couple of them. There's a couple. I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of shows with now known as Dean Ambrose, John Moxley. Oh, wow. We were doing matches and shows together. His promos were amazing, so I remember working with him. I remember doing stuff over in IWA Mid-South with what was known as Age of the Fall, Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black, and you know him now with Seth Rollins. Wow. One of my biggest and my most friendly, and that was legendary because first and foremost, it takes place in the former ECW arena. So to be in that legendary venue was one thing, and then we shared the locker room. A man now people know as Cesaro Claudio Castagnoli was there. Wow. The American Dragon Bryan Danielson, who is now Daniel Bryan, was there. This is just a view. Wow. And to be in that venue during that, we won. It was a tournament, and so me and the Soul Touchers, which was myself, Willie Devon Richardson, and Marche Rocket, we won our first night, and our second night we were eliminated. But after our second night, we received in the ring, in the middle of the ring, a "Please Come Back" chant. And that was so legendary to me, and it meant a lot because they had heard it before. And this is my first time going with the guys and performing out there, and to have the crowd in Philly in that legendary venue chant "Please Come Back" was almost one of my greatest moments ever in my career. I've won titles all over the country. You know, I've wrestled some of the biggest names. I've been in locker rooms with some legends. But that moment for me stands out the most to hear "Please Come Back" in a Chikara ring in the ECW arena during a big tournament like that was so surreal.
Wow. And when during this journey of you going through wrestling, was there any specific, not mentor to say, but was there any advice that you were given that kind of resonated towards you while you were going through?
Absolutely. Willie Devon Richardson, who became my tag team partner, one of my best friends, I was his best man at his wedding. He would always give me advice like, you always have to work harder no matter what. You can't just rely on what you can do now. You know, keep reinventing what you do in the ring. keep making yourself a better performer in the ring. And, train yourself well. Don't just allow yourself to say, oh, I'm comfortable, and let your body go to waste. You can be a big guy, but you want to look like a big guy that's a monster in the ring, not just a big guy who's a slob, for lack of better words. And that advice carried me over even into stand-up.
Well, and then that's kind of what I wanted to segue into. So I know, what was, I don't know how many years after wrestling, but what was the transition like between doing that to going to Comedy Central's, talent search that you were involved with?
So, to be honest, there weren't any years difference. It was an overlap.
Oh, wow.
I was actually doing both. I was doing both at the same time. I would do wrestling when I was in Chicago. If I wasn't on the road doing a show, but if I was in Chicago doing a show, I would wrestle a match, go in the locker room, hurry up and quick clean myself off, throw my clothes on, go do an stand-up show, and go be on stage and tell jokes. Now, there was, I was doing that for both. I was doing both at the same time for about 5-6 years.
Wow.
So stand-up completely took over because I started getting more opportunities in stand-up than I did in wrestling. And I guess because I didn't put forth as much effort anymore into wrestling as I had with stand-up. So it allowed me to do both. But stand-up took over. Like I said, I started getting booked around the country. I started being able to headline shows, and I had opportunities such as the Comedy Central Up Next Talent Search, and different things happened. And so, wrestling took a back seat, as well as the injury that I had. So, because that was another thing that was making the transition easier, because a lot of people didn't know for years I had a real bad neck injury. And so I didn't tell anybody, but what it wasn't like, it could have been major, but luckily I caught it earlier and did the rehab and physical therapy for it. But that allowed my transition from wrestling to stand-up to be a little bit easier.
Yeah. Well, and then, so that was through the Laugh Factory, right? And that's based in Chicago? So is that one of the... No,
the Comedy Central Up Next Talent Search was through the Improv.
Oh,
That's
okay.
It was through the Chicago Improv. The Laugh Factory wasn't in Chicago just yet.
Okay.
They had only been in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, so they hadn't gotten to Chicago yet.
And then once they had, that was when you started doing the podcasting and stuff through them?
That's actually... So I had done radio for 4 years. I did Educated Insanity with my co-host J.R. Bang at the time, and we did that through ChicagoLandSportsRadio.com. And so for years we were live weekly and everything, and I was so adamantly against podcasts because I was live on the radio. I was like, I don't want to have to do a podcast. Everybody's doing a podcast. And so the situation happened, the transition was happening where I was getting ready to leave soon and leave Chicago and move out to Los Angeles. So then that allowed me to have to let go of the radio show. Well, Bobby Hill, who's a comedian and a friend of mine, him and I would always talk about the Marvel and DC TV shows. And we would just constantly have a regular conversation with two grown men who would nerd out and have barbershop talk about it. And so we initially were going to do something with our other buddy, Xavier Lamont. We were going to do what we call 2.5 Black Men. We were going to do a 10-minute podcast because Bobby Hill's mixed and Xavier Lamont not full black, so we're going to do 2.5 Black Men. And so we do a 10-minute podcast. We could never get Xavier to come into the city because he lived in the suburbs, and it would always be a trek with traffic and stuff like that. So we could never get him to come to the city to do what we were going to do. So one day, Bobby and I were just waiting on him. We was like, yo, let's just record what we talk about and see what happens. And I was like, all right, whatever, because I had access to the studios. And then we were just sitting there so what are we going to call it? And we were just thinking around. It was like, yo, let's just call it the Trusty Sidekick Podcast. And so if you listen to our very first episode, it's like, we don't know if this is going to go anywhere. And so and it was just something just self-produced, and we were doing it on our own. We were getting a little bit of following here or there. Bill, who's a personal friend of mine, he got cast on Flash. And so once I saw the information hit deadline and stuff, I texted him immediately, was like, yo, congratulations on the gig. I need you to do my podcast. He was like, bet. And so he did the episode, and when he did the episode, our download shot through the roof. And so then that's when the Laugh Factory was expanding their podcast network from LA to Chicago. Okay. And the management of Laugh Factory, they were like, hey, we hear what you guys are doing. We would like to bring your podcast onto our network. How do you guys feel about it? And at the time, we didn't have any network affiliation, so we were like, sure, whatever, let's go. And that's been the merger ever since.
Wow. No, that's awesome. That's really cool to see that whole transition from going through wrestling and then going into the stand-up world. Now, talking about you had some favorite wrestlers, were you huge into movies and the comic stuff as a kid as well?
Oh Yeah, so my mom was what you would consider very overprotective of me. So I didn't always get a chance to go outside and just kick it with everybody. So like on Saturdays, when all my friends would be outside playing, I'm in the house watching movies, whatever, on television. And so I would always be watching them, and I got used to them. Like, there were certain periods of movies where I was just a fan of, I do affinities of. Like, I would always watch War Games when it came on for some reason. Don't know why I love that Matthew Broderick movie, but I still would watch it.
Yeah.
Things like that. I would watch Broken Arrow just to see Christian Slater and John Travolta. Movies like that, and I would constantly watch them, and then I would watch other movies. And then I would start going to the theater to see different things. And so I had an affinity for them in a certain way. Comic books were always my thing because I love to draw. And so I always wanted to look at the characters I saw and then just recreate them myself. And so that was another thing with that. So it's always been a part of my life. It's never been something new. Like, I never was growing up a diehard Star Wars or Star Trek fan. Like, I'd seen all the movies, but I never was just like a diehard fan of them. But I remember certain things. So, like, when people have the great knowledge of them, I'm like, yo, I commend you because you pay attention to them. But they pay attention to those. Like, I pay attention to all of the comic book movies that come out. Like, any one, I pay attention to it. And so that was the thing just for me as a kid growing up.
Well, and I think that's what's so cool about what Collider and what Christian and the whole team over with the Schmoedown do is you see all of the different backgrounds and all the different people that do have, obviously strengths in certain categories. I mean, that kind of can segue into how has the experience been, I guess, being under the lights and being involved with that cast of people, because I couldn't imagine.
So literally everything started from my Screen Junkies debut on Movie Fights and doing everything there. And granted, I didn't win my first movie fight, but it made such a resonance with the audience that it allowed me to come back and keep coming back. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I just started hearing. I was completely oblivious to the internet world and to what everything was. And so at a point after a while, Ken Napzok had left Screen Junkies and gone on to Collider. And he was like, yo, you should try to come do the Schmoedown. And I was like, I think I've heard of it. I'm not sure. And so I watched a couple of episodes on YouTube and whatnot. I was like, okay. Then he invited me to come down and watch a taping. And I came down to watch a taping, and I'm listening to the questions being asked, and I know them. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is dope. And then I talked to Chris, and he was like, do you think you can do it? I was like, yeah, I'm over here killing. But it's a different feeling when you're watching it from when you're competing in it.
Yeah, I couldn't
But
imagine.
also, the biggest thing was there was all these people, celebrities I was around. And I was like, this is surreal, just to hang around. Mm-hmm. And so then I finally did my first, when I did my first match against Andreyko. Granted, I lost. I was a little bit nervous because I was like, yo, I've talked to Mark Andreyko. I've done Screen Junkies news with him. I know what his knowledge is.
Yeah, he's the droid.
And it's like, this is going to be a battle. He's Android. But, granted I lost, but it was like, again, it was a fun experience. And it had that reaction to bring me back. And so Christian, was like, yo, let's try. How do you feel about doing this? Mm-hmm. And that's when I became the mouthpiece of Miss Movies, which was super dope. Because Brienne wasn't for sure about it at first, because she was like, I'm not used to being a bad guy. I was like, well, listen, if you let me do the talking, I can help you make this transition. I was like, I know how to.
Well, I remember
it's
watching.
It's surreal.
Well, and I remember watching that. Pretty much all these moments, like your first match with Mark and the transition with the Misfits. Watching all that as it's going on, it was really incredible to see all of you guys, putting those. I don't want to kind of say performances on, but doing what you guys did in the storylines were just fantastic. Now out of all, no worries. Like, and out of all the like Robert, Meyer Burnett, and Draco, I guess Coy Jandrew, Inman, Rachel, who was the most intimidating competitor that you faced so far that you've kind of looked at and been like, oh wow, this might be a challenge?
I definitely have to say it was when we were doing the Fatal 4-Way Inner Geekdom match, because Rachel is a beast when it comes to Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Jason is a monster when it comes to Star Trek and anything DC. Coy knows Marvel just as much as I do. So it's like there are different things we all know. And so that one was like, because I knew I could flourish more in the Inner Geekdom than I could the regular Schmoedown. Mm-hmm. But when it came to that, I was like, this is a toss-up. This could go any way, because, again, knowing how everything plays out, knowing how the second round can change everything in a minute, Like if you don't get if you get opponent's choice, it can screw you up completely. If you get your own strength, some people they destroy their own strength. Some people lose their own strength. Yeah. So literally, the inner geekdom, the Fatal 4-Way, more so, more so those three competitors were like the hardest thing I think I'd ever had to face.
When was the moment when you realized that the Schmoedown was so big? When was the moment where you realized, wow, this is a beautiful, beautiful program? I like the way that everybody interacts, not only between yourself, the personalities, but also between the fans and also the reactions on the Schmoedown.
I think that moment for me, like I'd started seeing how big it was. The official moment for me was the free-for-all. The free-for-all I did last when I did big free-for-all, when first of all, I'm there and everybody's there. Like everybody's there. And I'm like, oh my God. And then to be there when the whole Marky and Draco elimination of all the monsters at the table happened. And then that was a great moment. Right. Yeah. Sam Levine eliminates four other people as well. And that was there being there. But then the reactions to see some of the fans' responses after that, once it finally aired. And the way the fans interact and everything. And I was just like, holy hell, this is real. Like, this isn't just a certain state thing. This isn't just a United States thing. This isn't just a continental U.S. thing. These are people all over the world who are interacting. And then when I started seeing the follow happen on social media for me personally, when I started getting followers from the UK, from Germany, from Italy, and everybody saying, hey, I love what you do on the Schmoedown. Wow. I was like, oh my God, this is really real. I never thought it would, you hear about it and you hear it happen with other people. But for me personally, I was like, oh my God, this is real.
Well, and has that changed you going to like conventions and stuff as well? Do you notice you're getting welcomed a lot more by people?
Absolutely. My first convention I went to since everything I've been doing in the internet community was this year, and it was back home for me. Again, I'm from Chicago, and so it was at C2E2. And my co-host and I, Bobby Hill and I, we were there to cover C2E2 for the Trusty Sidekick Podcast. That was it. We were doing it on behalf of for the podcast. And this is how I knew it was real for me, because I was going to pick up my press badge, and I was waiting on Bobby, and I was leaving the Will Call press station, and I was getting ready to go to the exhibition hall, and I will never forget, there was a black girl on her phone. She was looking down and looked up and saw me and was like, oh my God, and started shaking. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? She said, oh my God. I was like, what? She's like, I just watched you. And I'm like, watched me where? Because again, my brain isn't processing what this is. And so I'm like, oh, on YouTube. She was like, yeah, oh my God, I'm such a fan. I was like, well, thank you. She was like, oh my God, can I take a picture with you? I was like, absolutely. And then she said, I've never met a celebrity before. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you still haven't. And I'm like, you still haven't. But then I took a picture with her. And then when I'm walking through the exhibition hall, because we're recording it, we're taping it and do video and everything for ourselves, people are stopping me like, yo, I love you on the Schmoedown. I love you in Screen Junkies. I'm like, wait, I'm at home and this is happening. I literally had a dude walk up to me and was like, yo, what are you doing in Chicago? I'm like, I'm from here. What are you talking about? Because I never put two and two together like that. And that was the moment when I realized, oh, this is real. And then I went to Comic-Con this past year. This is my first time going to San Diego Comic-Con. And walking the floor, as crowded as it was, to have people stop me at Comic-Con with like, oh my God, can I take a picture with you? I was like, this is really happening. Wow. And so that is letting me know all this is for real. And I love every minute of it. I love all the fans and everything.
Well, and I think what, especially with like, not to get into politics and stuff, but with everything going on in the world, I think it's really, really important to have the escape. And with the Schmoedown and with Collider and Screen Junkies and like all the online communities, what I love is all the personalities and people on there really do contribute to that.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all need a level of a place of peace in a sense, like you said, throughout the calamity. And the internet community has brought forth that. Now, granted, you have some people who try to spoil it for everybody, but those are just few and far between. But I will say one of the craziest things about this entire thing for me has been you find out that people you're fans of are fans of you. I remember when I was at a buddy's house of mine, Katrina Law, people know her from Arrow, Spartacus, and other shows. She's a friend of mine, and I was at her house one night when they were doing Training Day. We were doing a live watch-along because my buddy is Justin Cornwell, who was in the show with her.
Oh, awesome.
And we're all just hanging out, speaking about the show and everything. And I'm about to leave, and Daniel Furigale, who was on Spartacus with her, we're about to leave, and he was like, I got a question for you. I was like, yo, what's up? He was like, aren't you on Screen Junkies? I was like, yeah. He was like, I'm a fan of yours. I'm like, dude, I'm a fan of yours. I was And so that was a surreal moment to me when I'm like, oh, it's not just the average fan that we consider, that watches us. People all over watches. I had a run-in the other day with Ryan Sands from Marvel's Runaways. Mm-hmm. And him and we were in a Target, and I was like, yo, you're on, I walked up to him, I was like, yo, you're on Humans. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's the horrible show. You're on Runaways, good. And so he was like, yeah, and we were talking. He was like, yo, you look familiar. I was like, well, I do a lot of the internet stuff. He was like, yeah, where do I see you? I was like, yo, I've done Marvel movie news before when you were just on. He was like, that's why I've seen you before. And I'm like, yo, so it lets me know that everybody who we could possibly be talking to and talking about watches us at times. And that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And now, I know, since we were talking about kind of movies and fan bases, weren't you, this was a couple years ago now, but you were a part of the Spike Lee joint.
Yeah, I was in Chirac. Yeah. I was one of the co-stars of it. It was first of all, that was my first major opportunity, I think, to really do something on a big scale. I'd never been in a major motion picture until that moment. It's a blessing. It was nothing more. It's nothing short than a blessing. And I got the opportunity to work right long. I'm sorry.
And I was going to say, how did that all come about? Was that something that you were you looking to become start going into a movie, or did that opportunity just kind of show up to you?
So I have an agent in Chicago, and he would send me on a bunch of auditions. I'd already booked some commercials and whatnot, but he called me one day. And he was like, I got an audition for you. It's for The Worst Kept Secret in the City. It's for Spike Lee's movie Chirac. I was like, cool. And he was like, yeah, so you got an audition for us. So I'm like, all right, cool, I'm going to go audition. I'll just go down there and do, like normal. And I go to the place where we're auditioning, and I see all these top-level Chicago celebrities and people who are on TV heavily in the city. And I'm like, oh, okay, a lot of actors I know from the city. And I'm like, this is going to be just a regular audition. I'm about to go in, and I hear somebody say, well, he wants something else to drink. And I'm like, who the hell is he? And out comes the door, peak Spike Lee. And I'm like, well, okay. Ain't no point in getting nervous now. So wow. I go through all that. I go through the audition with Spike. I remember showing him my headshot, my resume, and he was like, oh, you're a comedian, huh? I was like, yeah. He was like, are you funny? I was like, my schedule says so. And then he was like, well, that's a lot of unfunny comedians with a busy schedule. I said, well, that ain't me, clearly. And so him and I went back and forth on that for a while, and then I did the scene, and then I got to improv some stuff for like 5.5 minutes afterwards with him just randomly. And then I was leaving out, and he was like, yo, what are you doing for the summer? Are you here for the summer? I'm like, are you on tour? I'm like, I'm going to be here for the summer. He was like, okay. And so I leave out, and I'm like, I'm 96% sure I booked a role in this movie. 2 weeks later, I officially got the call that I had booked a role, and I was like, dope. But I hadn't known what my role was. I just knew I had a role. I was like, I can have a couple of lines, as I said. It wasn't until I went for wardrobe fitting, and one of the costume designers was putting his shirt up against me, and she was like, oh, yeah, he'll look good with Wes with this on. And I'm like, Wes who? She was like, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? I was like, I ain't got a clue. I'm just happy to be here. She was like, oh, you're Wesley Snipes' right-hand man. I was like, hey, say what? And so I was like, what? And so that, that allowed me to, like I said, work with Wesley Snipes. I ended up having a scene where I got to work with the legendary Angela Bassett, Nick Cannon, Samuel L. Jackson, John Cusack, all those people who are so amazing that I've seen on TV and film for decades since I was a kid. And I got a chance to work with them directly was like surreal.
Well, I know one of my favorite all-time comedians of like all time is Dave Chappelle.
The only scene he's in, I'm in with him. And so this is what happened. Initially, it was supposed to be another comic, another big name comic, from what I was told. And we get like call sheets the night before to know what time to be on set, who all's going to be there, blah, blah, blah. So I got my call sheet and I'm looking, and right under my name says Dave Chappelle. And I said, what? So I go on set that morning. I go in the hair and makeup. I'm sitting in one chair. Wesley Snipes sitting next to me. Spike Lee comes in the trailer. Spike tells Wesley, you know who working today? Wesley say, who? He was like, Dave. I said, Dave, who's Chappelle? He's like, oh, okay, cool. Spike Lee literally looks at me and say, I already know, Jay. I already know. I said, hey, man, I'm cool. I'm just here to work. And so,
wow.
And so we get on the set. We get on set where we're supposed to be filming, and we're setting up, and they do what's called blocking and everything. And we get set up, and then Dave walks in. And so Spike was like, hey, Jay, just be cool. I said, hey, man, I'm just here to work. Let's just make this happen. So the scene goes by, and the scene literally only has dialogue initially for Wesley and Dave Chappelle. That's it. Mm-hmm. So at a point, Spike looks at me and say, Jay, jump in there. And I said, cool. So it goes Wesley, Dave, Wesley, Dave, Wesley, me, Wesley, Dave, me, Dave, me and Dave, back and forth. Initially, what you don't see is a point where I made Dave Chappelle break twice and laugh. Wow. And him and I, after we got done filming that scene, because that was the only scene he was in, but after we got done filming, him and I became super cool. We talked for like a half an hour, exchanged information. I see him all the time out here in Los Angeles. Yeah. So him and I always chop it up. And it's just an honor to, work with somebody like that and call him a friend.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but did I also see you, were you in the one Adam Sandler movie that just came, Stanley Wexler? Were you also a part of that?
You saw me. So what happened? So they were filming that at the Forum in Inglewood, and somebody in production hit me up, was like, "Yo, we need some actual wrestlers here. Can you come and like fill in the back area for that? We'll pay you the full SAG rate if you don't mind." And I was like, "Man, I guess I ain't got nothing to do. Plus, I'll take a quick payday." I was like, "Well, who's all in it?" They was like, "Well, they was like Terry Crews, blah blah blah." They told me who the wrestler was. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I wanted to talk to Rikishi again."
Oh yeah.
So I get down there, and they were like, okay, you must be one of the actual wrestlers. I said, yeah. And so I'm hanging around, and then I find out that Jennifer Hudson is in it. Now, when I find out Jennifer's in it, she comes out, and she's doing a walkthrough. She sees me. I see her. We run up and hug each other. Production has no clue what's going on. They're like, how the hell does this happen? Well, not only did Jen and I grow up together around the same area, we're both in Chirac together. Also, her now ex-fiance, David Otunga, is one of my good friends.
Oh, yeah. Otunga, yeah. Wow.
So,
wow.
So we talking and kicking, and everybody like, who are you? So then Rikishi comes over. Rikishi out there. I'm talking to Keish, thanks to David, and then Terry Crews' stunt double is Shad Gaspard from Crime Time that used to be in the WWE. Me and Shad just chopping it up, laughing and everything. They're like, yo, who is dude? So then Nick Swartzen comes up. Nick Swartzen and Adam Sandler there. We talking about just comedian stuff, being on the road and stuff, different clubs. And they're like, yo, so one of the assistant directors was like, I have to pull you aside and ask you, who are you? I said, what do you mean? It's like, how does everybody know you? I said, I'm an average black dude that just hangs around. That's it. Wow. But, and that was it was just fun to be able to do that, to be a part of that for what it was worth.
And do you think, now looking back, do you think the younger you would have seen yourself in these situations, talking to...
Absolutely. Let me tell you what the younger me saw. The younger me saw I'll tell you exactly what younger me saw. At one point, younger me saw me being a clown in the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey circus. Swear to God, that's the truth. Younger me saw, when I started wrestling, saw me coming down the aisle for WWE's Monday Night Raw, and that was it. I tell everybody, I never would have imagined being in this many films and have done TV and being a stand-up comedian, all that. I would have never imagined it. I am grateful to God for all of it, but it was never in my dreams.
Does the Auburn Gladiator name came from your days of wrestling, or it came from the days of the Schmoedown?
It came from wrestling. So it initially started, one of the group wrestling factions that I was in, it was called The Cure. It was the Crusade to Undo and Restore Equality. And it was a bunch of, it was all black wrestlers and the men and women in like in Windy City Pro Wrestling. So everybody picked a moniker behind themselves. My boy Acid Jazz was like the urban assassin. My boy Marche Rocket, I forgot what he was, but I know my tag team partner, Willie the Bomb Richardson, was the urban American dream. Like, he loved Dusty Rhodes to the fullest. Yeah. And so everybody had something. Our manager, C. Red, was the urban sensation. And everybody had something. I needed something. And I was like, you know what? One of my favorite movies at the time was Gladiator. So I was like, the urban Gladiator. And I to this day still have the word Gladiator tattooed between my shoulder blades. So
wow. Now, what actually, talking about Gladiator, what are, I know making a top 10 list is probably one of the hardest things to do, as I've been trying for my whole life so far. What are some of your favorite movies that you've seen recently or just of all time?
Some of my favorite movies are weird movies people don't believe that they are. Total Recall is one of my favorite movies because the original Total Recall, Coming to America stays there, Gladiator for sure, the Ten Commandments, what else? Oh my God, it's so hard to think of all of them. But those are some of the ones off the top of my head.
Do you remember what? Because for me, one of the first movies I saw in theaters was actually the original X-Men. Do you remember the first theater-going experience that you had, or one of the first, I suppose?
I believe it was either Malcolm X or Jurassic Park. Wow. It was one of the two of those. Because I know Malcolm X, I went as a school trip. Jurassic Park, my mother took everyone. My mother took the whole neighborhood. My mother was that loving mother. She took the whole neighborhood.
Oh.
So I know we have a match coming up at the Spectacular, at the Manager Bowl. That's against a couple people, Finn Stocks, Miss Emma Fife, Ricky Hayberg. Are you looking forward to that match?
If you want my honest opinion, I just want it done with because it's an inconvenience. There's no reason I should have to have a match with dumbness. Ricky Hayberg is as pointless as a blade of grass. Emma Fife isn't a manager, so there's no reason for her to be there. I mean, like, there's no reason for this. I mean, the fact that now everybody has to go through this thing with these contracts and all this stuff, it was a whole lot simpler back in the days of Christian. I mean, contracts make stuff official, whatever. But I got to deal with Dagnino, who can't even walk through a door straight, okay? The man tries to get out of the door. He can't spell. He finds more excuses than people on death row. I don't want to deal, like, it irks, it makes my blood pressure rise. You know what I'm saying? And I got a lot of other issues that make my blood pressure rise. I have baby mamas. I got two of them. But Dagnino runs my blood pressure higher than both of them.
Now, yeah, how I look at it is this is just like, this is on the path to Misfits becoming or achieving greatness, you know?
I feel like, I tell everybody this. There are things that will be done. There are things that are glorious. Me going ahead and winning this and knocking this out and getting this over and done with is going to be one of those glorious things. I would prefer this was an Inner Geekdom match because, whatever. But now I got to deal with it as a regular Schmoedown. I'm like, that's fine. Whatever. If I got to do it this way, I'll do it this way. I don't care. But, it's a little stepping stone. I mean, and like everybody's been complaining. Because, see, here's one of the biggest things. The stipulation is whichever manager wins, they get to make a title match from a member of their faction, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, Jay don't technically have a faction anymore because Brienne's gone in the win, and it's just him and Stacey. So what type of title match can they have for their faction? Well, I could technically put myself and Stacey in the tag when I win. I can put myself and Stacey in the tag match. I can put myself back in the Inner Geekdom match. I can put Stacey in for the title. I mean,
it just opens
there's
the door.
Options. So I hate the fact. Yeah, the door's open for me to do a lot of things with Stacey and I. I also could already have Stacey's new tag team partner just in case Brienne doesn't come back. I see people think because Clark said no and Rachel said no that I'm done recruiting. No, that never stopped.
You're always looking for the best people to join your alliance. I think that's with any faction of the Schmoedown.
Exactly. I want to snatch up people. I don't even want to call it snatching up. I just want to recruit people who want to how do I say this? Who want to enhance their greatness, who want to know what it feels like to be glorious, and also steadily victorious.
No, that's dope. Segueing into something else, like what are some movies next year that are coming out that you're looking forward to? I know for me, like Black Panther it looks just unreal. The new split sequel Glass by M. Night Shyamalan, to me that looks fantastic. Was there anything that jumped out to you?
Well, I mean, of course, with the Trusty Sidekick Podcast, every single comic book movie that's coming out next year, it's definitely my radar. Deadpool 2 stays high on it just because I want to see how they do now that they have money. New Mutants is going to be high. New Mutants is high on my radar because I want to see a full mutant horror movie. I want to see that. Black Panther goes without saying. Black Panther goes without saying for me because personally I am trying to get Marvel to have me host their Black Panther premiere because I don't want them to do the same typical thing. So I'm putting it out. So for everybody who listens on Twitter, I have a tweet, keep retweeting that, keep following that. But that's not the end of there. Black Panther, of course, Infinity War is one of the big ones because as somebody who's followed every single one of these Marvel MCU films since the beginning, since Iron Man in 2008, and to know this is a culmination of 10 years of movies and almost 18 to 20 films, I want to see how this all comes together in this way that's supposed to blow our minds. The trailer's amazing, so I've already been behind it, so I'm waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the whole reports about maybe Fox being integrated, like the whole X-Men? Do you want Marvel to move? I mean, to be honest, as comic book fans, I think it would be incredible to see X-Men, Avengers, everyone all together in a movie, but do you think it's necessary?
Well, I look at it from two different points. I look at it as from the comic book fan, the person who loves, like you say, who wants to see the X-Men and the Avengers potentially go at it or just team up, who wants to see the Fantastic Four in the MCU. But I also have to look at it as someone who's in the industry, as an actor, and someone who has friends who are writers and developers and who could lose a lot of jobs because if Fox gets absorbed to Disney, instead of there being two companies to work for, now there's only one, Instead of, some deals that may have been potential with Fox may not go with Disney. So it's a catch-22 of what can happen. Yeah, it sounds good from the whole, you can get Fantastic Four and have a great movie finally. It sounds good to hear that, potentially Wolverine could come back or something like that. But it's hard because, again, I have friends in the industry who it will affect negatively, as opposed to anything else.
Well, yeah, and like I have one of my cousins who was actually the weather wizard in the first season of The Flash. Even I have people in the industry too. It just to me.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Chad.
Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I know, to me, Disney not monopolizing, but they kind of are in the sense that they're everywhere now.
Well, you got to think it kind of is a monopoly because they're going to take over Fox's entire TV and movie division. So they're going to, people like, well, what happens with The Simpsons? What happens with all these, prominent shows that were on Fox or FX or things like that? Now, granted, Disney knows about branding, so those won't change much. Deadpool probably won't go into the MCU because Kevin Feige's already said he doesn't want an R-rated superhero. Yeah. So. If that be the case, then if Deadpool doesn't go, we pretty much can be sure that the X-Men don't go. Yeah. Because they're all in that same universe.
Did you talking about Marvel and then DC? Were you a fan of Justice League when it came out?
I went to see Justice League. I didn't. You know what? At first, here's the thing. I'll be honest. I didn't expect anything good out of Justice League when I heard about it. Not when I went to see the film. When I heard about it, because the track record of other movies they've already made. So I was like, well, you only have Wonder Woman. So if all you have good out of this is Wonder Woman, and all I have to go off of is Batman v Superman going into Justice League, then I'm not gonna be, super excited and super, ready to make this happen. So I knew what Zack Snyder had done, but then I heard about the unfortunate incident with his daughter, and then Joss Whedon coming in to do reshoots, and I'm like, well, Whedon knows how to do a team-up movie. He's given us the Avengers. Granted, Avengers Age of Ultron wasn't a great film, but he's given us that, So I'm like, okay, we could potentially have something here. Then I started seeing the trailers. I'm like, okay, this looks Joss Whedon, but what is it? He's only doing reshoots, quote unquote. Yeah. So like, what does the story look like? Then I hear all of a sudden, well, we have to bring Henry Cavill back in, and they can't get rid of his mustache. How much did you have to shoot with him that you have to worry about a mustache? You know, so it was different things. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, this movie is exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, the mustache thing just pissed me off. That I couldn't.
Oh yeah, it's like it made no sense for me. Like I said, the movie was a fun film, and you don't care about a story or a solid plot. Yeah. If you don't care about character development, if you don't care about the villain, and if you don't care about horribly done CGI because it was done too fast, if you don't care about those things, then yeah, you'll love the film. But everybody was like, no, you're just saying that because you're a Marvel shill. I'm like, no. If DC was smart, and more so not even DC, if Warner Brothers were smart, they would have just pushed back the release. They did not have to come out on November 17th. They could have waited till after Black Panther or right before Black Panther or even like in March. They could have waited till got it right. But Warner Brothers wanted to be greedy and thought they were going to capitalize and make $1 billion. Yeah. And you see what happened.
Well, and like now we have all those reports about like, I mean, Ben Affleck's in the news every week saying he's going to, just all these reports about the shakeup. Do you have a prediction of kind of where DC is going? Because when I was talking to Raul about it, I was almost thinking that it almost seems that they're going to be they're going to give the directors, their property and just let them run off with it now. I think they're going to go the opposite route.
This is what's about. I said this months ago on Screen Junkies News. Yeah. I said it months ago, and I will stand by it. Blow the universe up. And that's what they're about to do. Because once it started coming out that is Ben Affleck going to stay, the first time it came out, blow the universe up. Because now you don't know what to do. Affleck's leaving. Affleck's not doing the solo Batman movie, that's for sure. He's going to do Flashpoint so he can let them recast him and it's his way out. They're going to now they're just like, well, there is no DCEU continuity anymore. Nothing, there's no stakes. Nothing matters. They did this big-ass tease at the end of Justice League with Deathstroke and saying, well, let's have a Justice League of our own. So now you're either going to do the Injustice League or the Legion of Doom, but it's like, yeah, nobody knows if you're going to go to Justice League, the sequel. You've already established you can't do one film. So I'm all of a sudden supposed to believe that everything else you do has potential? No. I think the problem between DC's films and Marvel's films are Warner Brothers. And the reason being, Marvel is its own studio. It's a self-contained entity. DC is not its own studio. Warner Brothers is a studio. Yeah. And Warner Brothers keep putting their hands in stuff. And that is the problem.
No, I agree 100%. If they were to, and I mean, everyone, and in the last little bit, especially talking about with, the Kevin Feige's and the Kathleen Kennedys, and like whatever, Jeff Johns a fantastic comic writer, as I'm sure you're aware with his reign of the New 52 and everything he's done. They really do need to separate the DC off into its own, just segregated, kind of branch it off so that they can then go and make all these other movies. I am excited for Aquaman though, because James Wan is a fantastic director.
Well, I'm happy. Yeah, James Wan's a great director. I mean, I love what he's doing. But I also am glad that he made the tweet after being at the premiere of saying, listen, but you saw how they talked in Aquaman is not going to happen in my movie. Yeah. And the fact he had to acknowledge that lets you know something.
Well, it also...
Yeah, like that was one of my biggest nitpicks at Justice League. That scene of them talking in a bubble. I was like, oh my god, the Aquaman movie is going to suck if it's going to be only bubbles.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of shows you also, too, how kind of aware he is of the fan base already. And I'm sure that's probably in the meeting when you're in Warner Brothers. They sit down and say, by the way, don't look online while you make this movie. And I think by him tweeting that out, it kind of acknowledges that he's ahead of the game, kind of.
I don't think it's... I agree, and I kind of disagree. I think the thing is, Warner Brothers, again, they're so stuck on... They don't care about reviews. They just care about box office numbers. They don't care... They don't care that... Look, DC fanboys, and I'm just going to call it what it is. DC fanboys and fangirls care about critic reviews. Yeah. Those are the ones who were crying and hollering after Rotten Tomatoes gave Batman v Superman like, what, a 13 or something?
Yeah.
And then they were crying because of what it gave Justice League. Because it was like, initially it's at 97%, and then it dropped. Because what people don't realize is Rotten Tomatoes is not its own site. It's an average of every other critic. Yeah. And so all the critics came in and said, this is bad. And so Warner Brothers doesn't care about that, though. Warner Brothers is like, what did we make at the box office? What did we make globally? What did we make nationally? What did we make internationally? That's what we care about.
Which I mean, like, I think.
And so that's. No, I'm sorry. Go. I was letting you finish. My apologies.
I was gonna say, like, it just. I think that has a lot to do with studios in general now, which is a shame. It's like the movie studios, they definitely have the business set before the creative, and I think that's why I like Blumhouse and a lot of the projects coming out of there, because they are more of the low budget creative art house kind of films. Same with A24.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You do have Blumhouse, A24. Those were basically independent film houses.
Yeah.
You know, that just have gotten noticed. Just gotten notoriety on a national level, on an international level. But you have, let's just use that, like, you have a Universal who decided to say, oh, we can do a universe, and they were so busy being focused on everything they were going to do, they never got step one right, which was The Mummy. They never got step one right. They were so busy on thinking, okay, we're going to have the Wolfman, Bride of Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We're going to do all this, that, and the third. And that ever one point did they sit there and say, we might need to get one movie right first, and it's the first movie.
Yeah. Well, and talking about, like, Universal, I believe, is Universal or is it Paramount? But I know the reports of the new Quentin Tarantino in development Star Trek film. What do you think about that?
It's going to be because it's going to be a new take on it.
Yeah.
I you know what? I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, and I'll openly admit that. But I'm a Quentin Tarantino fan. Yeah. I am a Tarantino fan. I love all his films, and I will go see this because I want a new take on it. Not just because, in space they'll use the N-word, which is gonna happen a lot, guaranteed. Guaranteed, because it's Quentin Tarantino. For some reason, all of a sudden, it's just gonna be going out there. You're like, yo, you can't keep calling Uhura the N-word in space. But it's just because I want to see a new twist on it. I mean, J.J. Abrams did what he was going to do with Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek Into Darkness, but it was like kind of piggybacking off of what we'd seen before with the original films. You know, it's just, we got new graphics, we got a new look. It's just pretty much the same things in a sense. You take from the old and bring to the new. Yeah. Quentin Tarantino will revision something. And some people say, we don't need a revisioning. Sometimes a refresher instead of a can help.
Well, and
now, granted, if he blows it on this one go, let it be.
Well, yeah, and then with the reports that Patrick Stewart may want to reprise his role, I think that would be fantastic. Seeing him, and especially Stewart, talking with Tarantino's, dialogue. Oh my goodness! To me, that's awesome.
Yes. Well, people forget that. People think Patrick Stewart is just a certain type of actor. Like, we're used to seeing him in, like, we thought about the dark horror movie he did. I think it was Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
We forget about what people always go into Professor Xavier, but you also got to remember he's the voice of Bullock in American Dad, and he has fun.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
and he has that show, I think, too, that's more of a comedy as well. And he's showing stars. So it's like he has fun. So he has reigned as an actor for a reason. Well, and then, I mean, looking at his performance in Logan speaks for itself. That was unreal what he was able to do with that film.
Oh, which I'm hoping, I hope that he is able to be nominated for an Academy Award. My only fear is because Logan came out too early.
Yeah, well, actually, and that's what. Do you have any for sure predictions yet for the Oscars? I'm actually surprised at Get Out. I love Get Out. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, but I'm surprised with how early it came out that it's also been getting some traction as well.
I'm not, and I've been telling everybody this. I'm not, and I'll tell you exactly why. I'll give you the reason. No one wants to give you as to why Get Out is still making traction, and it's not a negative reason per se, and here's exactly why. Get Out is a good movie. It's technically not great. It's a good movie. The reason everybody says it's great, and I'm going to use two words that may sound offensive, but it's just the truth, it's because of what's called white guilt from a lot of people.
Yep.
If Get Out had not come out in the current racial climate, the racially charged climate that we're in, it is just a good movie, and it would not have amassed $100-something million coming out the gate. it would not have done it. It wouldn't. Grant Jordan Peele is a genius. He's a genius when he put it out. But if everything wasn't going on around us at this moment.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I didn't really even think about, that at all. The fact that it definitely has a lot to do with what's going on right now, that it's still...
And also because the Oscars still want to leave behind.
What'd you say? Bro? I was hoping he was going to say they're trying to get past the whole Oscar so white thing.
Well, that too.
And they're trying to get past that. So it definitely, again, it's at this rate, I would not be surprised. It would not shock me by any stretch of the imagination if it wins Best Picture. It would not shock me.
And have you seen The Disaster Artist yet?
Have I seen what now?
Have you seen The Disaster Artist yet? Because I know that's been getting a bunch of traction as well.
I have to go see that. And I'm gonna try to go see it this week. But I've heard it's getting a lot of buzz behind it.
The thing that I like from Jay saying about Logan, because I like Logan, but I don't like it as much many people do. I still remember a lot of my friends told me like, "Oh my God, I cried when Wolverine died." Sorry, spoilers. But I was like, it was predictable. I knew that he was going to die. I didn't feel emotional for it, but like you said, like the standout for me was Laura, the little kid, Daphne King. She was the standout in Logan.
Yeah,
and that's why
I would
like to be nominated.
I would love that.
Like you said, I would like to see a comic book movie getting recognition. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm very sad that like we talking about Get Out getting a lot of award buzz, and Split didn't get any award buzz, even though it's not a comic book movie, but it's inspired by comic book movies.
And James McAvoy should honestly be nominated for that, playing a person with multiple, and playing, anytime a person plays a character or a role with multiple personalities, it's a challenge, it's a stretch. Sometimes you have to go outside of yourself. The way he did that was as we would say, Oscar worthy. Will he be nominated for that? Probably not.
No, and there's that one scene, especially in Split, when they're in the therapist office and he's going back and forth through the different characters in his head. That scene alone was just so breathtaking to me watching that performance. So I would hope that he would get nominated, but I think it's going to be the Nightcrawler of this year, because Gyllenhaal should have been nominated, I think, for Nightcrawler when that came out in 2014. So I think that's going to be the wild card.
Yeah, also like John Goodman for 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh yes, that was a good one too.
Yeah, John Goodman for 10 Cloverfield Lane. Everybody forgot about that.
Well,
one of the, talking about musicals, the biggest injustice was Sing Street getting snubbed.
Oh.
Sing Street is 10 times better than La La Land ever was.
Like I keep saying,
La
La Land is I like it, but I just hate it because it's such a white person thing, and it just pisses me off.
Well, we were talking about before you got cut out. We were talking about my biggest problem with La La Land, as a lot of other people's, and I'll say it again, it's Hollywood rubbing itself.
Yeah.
That is all it is.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
It's Hollywood stroking itself. That is all that film is.
No, it is. I mean, give you the music is great, and I think a lot of the scenes and the directing by Chazelle were great. But it's the Hollywood film that definitely was for Hollywood.
Yeah, that's all.
But I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Did we have any projects, I guess, coming up, or anything exciting in the next little bit here? Other than, I guess, the Schmoedown?
The Schmoedown Spectacular for sure. Friday, December 22nd is coming up. It's going to be 3 parts. It's going to be a long event. It's a long event. It's a lot of 6 great matches. So it's going to be worth it. I definitely encourage everybody to be part of that. Check that out. The holidays are coming up. So really, It's just, Gary breakdown the Trusty Sidekick Podcast. Myself and Bobby Hill, we're going to record our 74th episode. And then we're going to go on our holiday break in a sense, and we're going to have our best and worst comic book films of 2017,
awesome.
Our best and worst comic book TV shows of 2017, and our prediction show for 2018 with all the movies, all the TV shows. So we're going to do all of that. There's going to be 4 different episodes coming up soon. So I tell everybody, Just stay tuned to the TrustySidekick.com.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter, Sidekick Trusty, everything.
And then you're at Twitter at Mr. J Washington, correct?
Yeah, MrJaywashington, Twitter for sure. I'm really interactive with people all the time, so yeah.
Well, no, and like I said, thank you again. We'll make sure when all that stuff gets out that I'm going to watch it and we'll share it because that sounds fantastic. And I know we're going to be doing a little bit of our favorite superhero movies and stuff. Very quickly, though, what was your favorite superhero movie of this year?
Okay, this controversial decision. So, you know what? It's hard because Wonder Woman would have been a perfect movie if it was not for the third act.
Yep. Agreed.
I tell everybody, Wonder Woman would have been a perfect movie if the third act would have delivered, because it was flawless the first two acts. Guardians could have been so much better, but James Gunn got real campy and got real over the top. Logan actually turned out to be the best.
That's mine.
Yeah. Logan, out of all, I mean, granted, I'm sorry, Thor Ragnarok was the best.
Ooh.
Excuse me, Thor Ragnarok was the best comic book movie as a whole for this year.
I mean, talking about like comic book movie, Thor Ragnarok was insane. Especially with the even the Jack Kirby references and stuff that was through the cinematography. Yeah, Thor Ragnarok. I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man: Homecoming. I thought that was spectacular.
I never thought there was anything wrong with it. I just felt it was a good movie. Well, because it was hard to make. When it came to Spider-Man: Homecoming, the biggest thing for me was it was hard to make it fully stand out. Excuse me, because this is our sixth Spider-Man movie. This is the sixth Spider-Man movie. So as much as we're all happy and we're like, yes, it's in the MCU, we got something new and blah, blah, blah. But we're like, yo, this is the sixth movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
So it's hard for it to be, it was a great film the way they did it. Michael Keaton was phenomenal as the Vulture. And, Tom Holland as Spider-Man speaks for itself. But it's hard to put it up there because, again, it's the sixth Spider-Man movie. But that's how I feel. But I feel that same way when it comes to X-Men movies now.
Yeah. Well, and that's why New Mutants, like you were saying, look so fascinating because it looks like they're definitely changing it up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But with that being said, there's your little preview for the best superhero movies of the year. You can find me at Twitter at Troy Loxton. And Raul, where can we find you?
You can find me at Raul Bader RDC, and also check out the Top channel and the Upshape channel that I also produce. And thank you so much, guys. And also, we're coming, and we're going to do our Star Wars review very soon also.
Yes, yeah. Well, and it's funny, we're going to be doing our Star Wars Monday show next week, which will be super exciting. And we also have a Team Action we were talking with, and we're going to hopefully get them on too to do a little conversation with. But thank you so much again, Jay. Hopefully you had a good time, and yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, I had a blast with you guys. I appreciate it much. Thank you for having me. Anytime you guys want me on, just hit me up and I'll be available.
Beautiful, man. Thank you.
Thank you.